Hey everybody, Scout Crafter here again. It's Friday. TGIF. Made it through another week. I'm in a good mood today, you know? Friday. I know it doesn't make a difference to me, but for a lot of you, it's a big thing. Friday, you know, you got the weekend off. It's a good day. Everybody feels better on Friday. So I'm on that bandwagon, okay? Even though I'm retired, every day's Friday. When Friday comes, it's a good day. You know, I had to get up this morning and take a haircut. You know, I've been cutting my own hair since March of 2 years now. It's been 2 years I've been cutting my own hair. The barbers is still not a safe place. And not only that, all my barbers, they packed up. All the old timers, you know, I used to go to an old time barber shop for 40 years, I think I was going to this guy. And he had two Italian guys used to cut your hair. And, you know, I miss the small talk. So even sometimes when I'm cutting my own hair, I imagine the small talk that used to go on between me and the barber. You know, you'd be sitting in a chair and you kind of zone out a little bit, you know, and when the clippers are going next to your head and it feels good and you're just kind of relaxed and the barber chairs are so comfortable and then all of a sudden he'll interrupt the silence with, you know, some kind of mundane question about hey, why is the weather so cold? You know, I used to have these just crazy questions just to start conversation, you know. How many cats do you have now? Just the crazy things. I miss them. It was Joe and Leo. Those two guys were great, and I miss those guys, you know. I can't believe you got 7 cats. Anyway, you know, I was thinking last night I was on my walk, you know. It was a beautiful night to walk, just about freezing, just right above freezing, you know. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, nobody is out. It's like, it's such a beautiful time to walk. And as I'm walking around, I listen to old-time radio shows on my phone, you know, and I was thinking about this yesterday because I was listening to like Jack Benny, and there was one part where I was actually laughing out loud. So I'm walking down the street at 3 in the morning, and you know, I got my fur hat on, so I'm looking like, you know, I'm looking kind of like strange, and I'm laughing out loud to myself. So can you imagine somebody looks out the window, they see me walking down the street laughing out loud? And, you know, when you hear about crazy people, you say, you got to watch out, a lot of crazy. I think they're talking about me. They probably see me and go, look at that nut job walking down. They can't hear the radio in my pocket. They're sitting, they see laughing to himself. He's nuts. So I thought about that. Then yesterday, I was about 2 blocks from my house, and and now this is 3 in the morning, I smell fresh donuts. Like somebody's cooking donuts or Belgian waffle or something. And I stopped, and I'm in the middle of the street going, I'm trying to smell. I'm going, you know, my sight's gone, my hearing is gone, but my nose is still good. And I'm like, man, somebody is cooking something good. And I'm looking at the windows, see who's up at that time in the morning, making either some kind of breakfast or donut. It smelled good. You know, like a state fair. You ever go to a state fair and you could smell those, what do they call them, elephant ears, or, you know, those, oh man, you smell that, those Zeppelis, remember that? You smell them, and it just has that smell, and it smelled so good yesterday. I was like, wow, that smells good. Anyway, we got a few things to get to today. A good friend of the show, Ben Wall, he just wrote me an email, and he says, you know, because he was doing a wrench and the paint wasn't drying. That's a problem we all have, especially me. I have a lot of problem because I knock out these videos so quick and I don't have time for paint to dry. Let me show you a couple tips of what I do, and let's talk about that first. Now, first off, let's talk about types of paint. My go-to paint for tools is always enamel paint, because enamel is a much more durable, stronger paint, but it takes much longer to dry because it dries from the inside out. This is an enamel paint. Now, there are 2 types of paints. There are the brush-on and the spray-on. They're basically very similar, but of course the brush-on is going to go on thicker because it's, you know, you're putting it on with a brush, whereas the spray-on you could put on a thinner coat, so it usually dries quicker, but they're very similar paints. Another type paint you might have is called a lacquer paint, and this is like these metal cast, these Dupli-Colors. A lot of automobile places will have a lacquer paint. Now, what's nice about this is it dries real quick. I mean, within an hour, it's almost cured that you can handle it fine, and it's, you know, it's durable, but it chips. It can chip. And for tools, especially on metal, you have to have a really good surface adhesion for these not to chip up. So they're not as forgiving as enamel as far as longevity, but they look good and they dry quick. Some people like them. I tend to like enamel because of the longevity. Now, here's an example of what I was telling you about the paint. You see here the little chips and scrapes that you get. You see what I can take off of my finger. See? Because this paint really, because it dries so quick, it doesn't have that stickiness that you need to adhere good to metal. So if you don't touch it and stuff, you know, it looks fine, but it does chip. That's why I don't usually use this on tools. Now, and the main thing you have to remember is, the surface was prepped. It wasn't that a bad prep. It's just that's the way that paint is. Now, if you want to cure a paint quicker, especially like enamel and things like that, that you can handle it and touch it, you know, because it takes at least 24 hours for it to really get to the point where you can touch it, enamel paint, you want to have some kind of oven. And let me show you what I use. Here is my 70, 80-year-old American standard oil burner. And you can see here, above the burner here, it's got a little a casing around it, and there's some vents on top, okay? And there's always warm air coming up through here because I use this to heat my hot water too. So there's always warm air. So much so, I have a little, this is an old furnace thermometer they used to have years ago, and you can see here the temperature. Right now it's 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so it's very warm here, and that's, you know, it hasn't been on for a while. Now, what I do is I usually take my tool, I'll lay it over here, and then I'll take a cardboard box and I'll throw it over the tool and let that, you know, more or less become an oven. And it gets up to close to 90 degrees, maybe a little bit more. Perfect temperature for drying these tools, and very low humidity. The humidity factor has a lot to do with drying. Now, one of the best additions to your shop that you can have is a couple of these clamp lights. They're cheap enough. You get them at Harbor Freight. You get them anywhere. You know, they run about $6, $7. You cannot, I'm telling you, you need to get a few of these. If there's dark areas in your shop, forget about putting up shop lights. Just get a couple clamp lights, clamp them on the beam, and put in a couple of LED bulbs. This one here is a LED 60 watt equivalent. You can see here it's very bright, no heat. Just a wonderful addition to the shop. I got them all over the place. However, they also make a good drying lamp. And let me show you how you can make a little oven for drying your tools real quick. Okay, and here we go. You have your beautiful small little paint oven. We used to make these years ago when we were doing scale models and model airplanes, things like that, to dry it. So what you want to do is take a regular box. You want to trace around the outside of the lamp and then cut about a ½ inch on the inside so the lamp will rest on top. Now you could leave the bottom of the box open and put it over, or you could even cut a little door like I did here that you can have access to get in there. And what you want to do is basically you take your clamp light and you put in a incandescent bulb. Okay, a lot of these are good for 60. I'll tell you what the maximum, but 60 watts or so. Get a 60 watt incandescent bulb. That's one that throws off heat. LED won't work. And you place your clamp light on top of here. You turn it on, and you can see what you have here inside. You could see you have a nice little drying oven. And on the sides here, I cut little vents here. If it should get a little warmer than you want, you can always crack the vent open or push it down. But that'll be enough. And the size of the box, it all depends. Now, if you want a hotter light, you can buy, they have what they call Brüder's lights. You get them at Tractor Supply, and they have actually heat lamps in them. That'll really kick up the oven. But this is enough to dry most stuff. It keeps the humidity down, keeps the dust from blowing around onto your part, and it's a nice way to dry all your parts. You can make it any size you want. A paint drying oven, great addition to your shop. That's a fun little project to make. You can also add a thermometer just to make sure. You want to keep it somewhere between 90 and 100 degrees. Something you'll know if it's too warm or something. You don't want to go over too much over 100 degrees, because then you could start messing with the paint or whatever. But it really, I'm telling you, sometimes I get those tools on my furnace that are so hot I can't hardly handle them. But man, when that bakes on, when that paint bakes on there and dries on, it lays down flat too. You don't get no orange peel, no bubbles. It's nice. It's nice. A heated finish with a little bit of air circulation, but no dust. That's what you want. A nice paint booth. Next up, good friend of the show, Tony Lenge. He sent me an email last week, and I got to tell you, I was really proud of the work that he did on these. He picked up a bunch of Estwing hammers, and they were beat up, you know, and look at the nice job that he did, the before and after on these. Isn't that nice? And then he wrote to Estwing to try and see if he can get some decals. They actually sent it to him for free. So that's always nice to hear when a company does something like that. But aren't they beautiful? What a great job. Great job, Tony, and thanks so much for sharing it. Okay, next up, you remember the other day my buddy Chris from Hooks Outdoors sent me a package of great stuff. Well, in there, one thing I didn't show you, he had a wrench in there. And in there, he wrote a little note there. It says, I have no idea, laugh out loud, make it look good again. And when he sent this over, I'm looking at this and I said, now let's take a look at this wrench. You know, this is just a standard stamped out steel wrench. And you wouldn't even, nobody would ever give this a second look. You would never look at this and go, wow, you know, I wonder what that looks like. You know, look at it. It's just, it is a, at most, 25-cent wrench at any flea market, right? So you say, why would you even spend any amount of time on that? And I said, that's the whole idea on this channel, is it doesn't matter what you're restoring. It's all about, you know, the practice, the fun. What do you say? Let's give this a shot and see what we can do with this bad boy. Okay, here's our post-wire brush evaluation. No surprises, but you can see here we have some pitting. This is staining. You can see when you see that black on there, that's the carbon steel that's staining. We have some, you know, disfiguring up here. It's really hard to do anything with that, but you can see here what it looks like. Okay, so the rust is gone, and you can see by here that was probably stamped out of some kind of, you can see here, it was, you know, probably had a big press stamping these out. Again, these do come in handy, especially if you have a smaller nut with a captive nut on top and you have to get to the bottom one. So, you know, a set of these thin wrenches do come in handy sometimes, but this was probably in some kind of toolkit or something. So let's get to the below all the staining and pitting. Okay, steel is surprisingly harder than I would have thought. So I had to go down to a 40 grit just to get down. And then, but you can see here, we got rid of the pits, the holes, the staining, these ends, you know what I mean? Now we just got to dress it up, you know what I mean? It's coming nice. It's still got some sharp edges here because remember, we did this edge and this edge, so that creates a sharp edge here. Not good. No bueno. So let's see if we can't dress this up a little bit, make it look good. Maybe we should do a little embellishment on it. Okay, we put a little Dykem red. This is called the layout fluid, and you do that so that it shows up the scribe line. We're going to take Randy Richards' awesome carbide scribe, and we're going to put this over here. We just marked two little dots in the middle here, and we're going to draw a line right down the middle, okay? And to do that, you know, we're just using a straight edge here, nothing crazy. And we could see from when we mark it here, we're going to mark it straight down. Okay, and there we go. There we have a line straight down the middle of the wrench. And from there, we'll do our layout and punch a couple indents, and then maybe we'll drill some holes. Have some now, we guesstimated where the center of the wrench is, kind of going by bounds, because this side is larger than this side, so you kind of just want to get it where it looks right. We put our little center punch on the line. Now, before you drill that hole, now you want to determine if you want to have secondary holes here, and you take your dividers like this, okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to put while you have this center divot in here to get that exact moment, then you put this on here, and you could scribe your little line over here where you want the corresponding secondary holes going down. We center punched and we lightly drilled the 3 holes. Now we're going to drill through the wrench. Holes are drilled now. Now we're going to go to the step drill. I have no idea what size we're going to make the holes, but we'll do it till it looks decent. Now, you know my favorite part. Remember what this wrench looked like before we started. And we're calling this project done. Now, is it done? You know, Chris put out that challenge. He says, here, make this nice. And nice is, you know, it's all subjective to the person that you're talking to. So right now, this is nice. It's all polished out, smoothed out. I mean, you can put it in the toolbox and it just looks, it's a nice wrench. But there's two types of nice, isn't there? There's regular nice, and then there's kind of over the top nice. And I did this just for practice. You know, I just wanted to see how far we could go with that cheap wrench. And I think we took this as far as we could see. We jeweled it here. We put a little Scoutcrafter red inside the holes, and it just had some fun down here. Practice. It's all about practice. Smoothed out everything. Everything's waxed and polished. So, you know, it's a totally different wrench, a lot of fun, and it's a few hours of work into a wrench that nobody would give a second look to. So it's almost like it's reborn again. So in closing, that's the fun of this hobby. You can take it as little or as far as you want to go with it, and you can just keep going. So it's a whole bunch of fun, and hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope you have a great weekend. You deserve it. Take care now. Bye-bye.